Mr. Martand. He has almost a decade of expertise in public policies, sustainable energy transition, data analytics, and digital transformation, among the others. Mr. Martand is the World Wind Energy Council's policy director in India. He has backed the United Nations Sustainable Energy for All, that is SEforAll, National Action Agenda and investment prospectus for a number of Sub-Saharan African nations. He was also awarded with the prestigious TERI Roll of Honour Award for 2016 in recognition of his services to the SEforAll Capacity Development Hub. Today, Mr. Martand will talk about building resilience. So delegates, let's welcome Mr. Martand.
I think I would like to put forward 5 to 6 concrete points on building resilience. We are all aware that the recent catastrophic events, force majeure events, regional and global events have disrupted and posed a challenge to the growth of renewable energy and clean energy transition at subnational levels, national level, regional and global level. So I think it is high time that nationally we realize that what are the going forward priorities and we work together on those priorities. I think the number one point which I want to highlight here is that in the recent years, while we have been making progress on the growth of renewable energy, we rank among the top 3 globally in terms of installed renewable energy capacity. We are ranked 4th globally in terms of our onshore wind capacity that we have in the country. But I think we also have to realize the fact that the capacity on wind that we have been adding in the past few years is not very attractive. In the previous part of our panel discussion today, we have emphasized enough on RTC power, on hybrid tenders, and going forward, the rising demand in C&I segment. And we have also heard from our colleagues that going forward, vanilla tenders will of course be there, but there is a high likelihood that we might see newer kinds of tenders in place, whether it is to meet RTC appetite or whether it is inclined towards specific durations of time on a particular day when we need green power or whatever it is, or whatever new combinations that we see in this evolving market. So I think on that note, it is important for us to see that while we are welcoming new technologies, we are creating space for ensuring maturity of some of these technologies in terms of availability of supply chain. We are emphasizing enough on Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliance. We also have to ensure that there is a growth in spectrum, in the entire spectrum, and there is a growth in renewable energy technologies across this wide bandwidth of rich renewable energy resources we have. Wind capacity, I will reiterate that in the past few years, we have added less than 2.5 gigawatt, less than, sometimes we have added less than 2 gigawatt. That is not very attractive for the manufacturers. It is not attractive enough for the project developers also. We have more than 10 to 15 gigawatts of annual manufacturing capacity in the country. Now you see, if I'm adding only 1.5 to 2 or 2.5 gigawatt of capacity in the country annually, that leaves a huge space, a big band. And instead of looking forward to a domestic market, I have to find for a market outside India when I'm manufacturing in the country. So I think the number one point is that we have to ensure that there is enough market, enough volume available for all renewable energy technologies, whether it is solar, wind, or pumped hydro, or for that matter, any renewable energy technology. And this is important once again, because we have to ensure there is diversity in our supply, there is diversity in our generation. We need a resilient grid system. We also have to ensure that this diverse nature of the intermittency that we see because of renewables, that is addressed, and that can only be addressed when we are tapping full potential of these renewable energy technologies. So now, number 2 is connected to what I was speaking earlier, and this is on the supply chain. If I speak about wind, then India has almost 8.5% of share in the global supply chain, and there is a huge potential for us to expand. The IEA and IRENA have been advocating for a capacity of over 8,000 gigawatt by mid-century in order for us to be able to meet 1.5 degree goal globally. Now, this is a huge appetite because at the moment, it is only less than 1/10 of the capacity, wind capacity that we have added. If I speak about offshore wind, then there's a projected number of around 2000 gigawatt that has to be there in place in order for us as world to be able to achieve 1.5 degree goal. And we are somewhere between 55 to 65 gigawatt of capacity that is globally added. And for audience in this room who are not aware of the fact, let me mention to them that India is making strides for its first offshore wind tender, and we are all keeping our fingers crossed, and we are expecting, just like the mother expects the baby in womb. So I'm not sure, as we are speaking here in this room, there's a tender there floated on the website. So that's the kind of momentum there is on offshore wind. But moving back to the issue of supply chain, it also becomes important at this point of time because these regional and global events have led to a major catastrophe in terms of the supply chain confidence we had in the past. So that is not going to be there for some time. Why? Because there's already enough turbulence in Europe. We already know that the market is transitioning towards newer technologies. And specifically, if I talk about the Indian market, then even in Indian market, we have manufacturers who have been manufacturing products for the market outside India, which means that the equipment and component that they have been manufacturing in the country might not be in line with what we have deployed several years back. And here I'm trying to indicate wind power systems that are considered to be eligible for repowering, right? So you see that there's a market is continuously evolving. The OEMs are putting their money, whether it is solar manufacturer or wind manufacturer, or for that matter, any other technology manufacturer. I think they are continuously investing in their R&D, and that is giving us a tangible result. So we all have to appreciate the fact that what was built in the past, if we don't continuously have a volume to appreciate that, and if our policies are not as dynamic as is the demand there, and if our policies are not able to result into a tangible demand, then one section of that manufacturing will remain dormant, or it will become it will not remain useful for the future. So that has to be dealt with strictly, and we have to see that how we are able to share our share in the global supply chain while adequately ensuring that we are also able to meet our own requirements. Now here also becomes an important aspect, which is availability of critical minerals. And I think I'm sure that my other colleagues will also add value to this discourse later when they speak about supply chain, if at all. And I think all of us are aware that a good portion of rare earth minerals is available in China. And there is a growing consensus regarding the fact that we have to ensure there is diversity and availability of these resources. So how do we ensure when certain resources, whether it is lithium or whether it is rare earth metal, these are only with certain in certain geographies, these are only with certain countries. So that's something that we have to collaboratively think of. And I'm informed that the EU has come out with some recommendations on how this challenge on availability of rare earth metals could be addressed. And I'm hopeful that the G20 and Clean Energy Ministerial and later COP this year would also prioritize these issues. Now, number 3 is exploiting complementarity. In the past, and particularly in the past decade, in the second half of the past decade, there was a time when we started seeing a competition between solar and wind. And I think that is not what, as an industry advocate, I would want. I'm sure that my colleagues in this room will also agree, because this discussion started with the idea of energy trading platform with RTC, hybrid, etc., etc. So I think there is a greater need for us to be able to exploit those diverse, rich sources of renewable energy sources that we have in the country. And I'm here indicating that whether it is solar or wind, whether it is pumped hydro, I think we have to see all of that in one perspective. Transmission planning has already been put by center. And Saloni rightly mentioned that, and then later Mr. Popley also mentioned that 500 gigawatt of RE integration plan has been put in place. But I think states also have to add to that discourse, and I think one of our colleagues rightly mentioned that. So on that note, I come to the fact that states have to play a very proactive role. The center is announcing a policy amendment every other week. But then that kind of momentum we also expect to see from the states. If I talk specifically about India's wind-rich state, Tamil Nadu, which has almost 9.9 gigawatt of installed onshore wind capacity and is a rich ground for upcoming offshore wind projects. So in Tamil Nadu, we are going to see over 2.7 times of rise in the demand for power in the CNI segment alone between 2021, 2022 and 2031, 2032. So you see, there is a huge exponential growth that we are going to see. And this is not the story just about Tamil Nadu. You go to Maharashtra, Karnataka, any industrialized state. And for that matter, if you go to any state that is planning to enhance its industrial capacity, its manufacturing capacity, the government of India itself wants to increase the share of manufacturing in the GDP. And I think all of that is only we are able to achieve only when we ensure that when we invite investments, there are targets set for those investments to have a net zero trajectory for themselves. When we hold investor summit, we put in place a target that X percentage of investments have to be green investments. They have to buy X percentage of power from green power. And I think those kind of momentums we will gradually see, because it will also help us in attracting green finance going forward. Now, the one important element happens to be finance. We already know that the investments that we have seen in clean energy space have been seen to be rising, but then also we have observed that the profits of fossil fuel industry have continued to double and rise even during times of COVID and then after post-COVID also. So I'm not saying that profits are not good. Profits are good, but then we also have to see that how we are able to put in place right kind of risk mitigation fund, infrastructure development fund, and philanthropic funds in place to support renewable energy growth, to support renewable energy deployment, but also to support niche technologies in markets that are not mature, technologies that itself are not mature. For example, offshore wind is still not a mature technology for the country. Green hydrogen, we are already discussing huge deployment of electrolyzers to be able to meet this larger green hydrogen mission. And on that note, let me also quickly point out that almost 125 gigawatt of RE capacity has been estimated by a ENY project report last year for green hydrogen mission. Now you see our installed capacity is anything between 115 to 125 gigawatt of renewable energy at the moment. So if we want to achieve 100% of green hydrogen mission, so all of that what we have done today was relatively easier to do, but then all of that will be consumed by hydrogen. So what about other sectors? What about electric mobility? What about green manufacturing, etc., etc.? So there's a huge target in front of us, and we have to see that how we are able to leverage it. Now, my final submission is that this is a very important year for India. India is having the presidency for G20. India is also hosting the Clean Energy Ministerial, and I think India adds huge value to COP discussions that happen every year. And I'm sure that this year in Dubai, we will be able to also put a mark there. But then my submission here is that India must advocate for setting up of financial instruments in place that are able to cut risks which immature technologies like offshore wind see. And these should not just be for India. India has already been a proponent of institutions like ISA and the CDRI, which are not just talking about context related to India, but global institutions that are helping us meet demand and appetite for RE technology, but also for resilience building. So I think on that note, we also need something for the offshore wind industry. Similarly, we would need something for the green hydrogen. And we must see that, how advocacy, whether part of G20 or SEM, is able to bring us to a common ground wherein evolving blue bonds market is prioritized. The right kind of targets are set by DFIs, MDBs, and commercial banks and other institutions, so that these kind of niche technologies see propagation across the globe, and we are able to meet larger renewable energy targets. We are able to see thresholds for mid-century are met. So our planning should not just be for today. It should not be for this decade, but I think this decade of action is going to help us make the most difficult decisions, the most difficult projects we have to undertake. What we have done in the past was easier to do. What we'll be able to do in this decade will be relatively tougher, but I think what we'll be doing beyond that is going to be much tougher, because we also have food security issues, we have land acquisition issues. So I think those also have to be taken into perspective. And I wrap up by saying that we have to develop a diverse basket of energy for us, for our region, and for the globe. Thank you.